Hello and welcome everyone. As we all are aware, our school will be undergoing major renovations. It is vital that before these renovations take place, we look closely at and examine the new learning spaces which we would like at our school. Today I will present and elaborate on 6 learning spaces which I believe will motivate and be beneficial to both our students and teachers. Firstly, I would like us to look at the personal learning space. This learning space represents an andrology approach which illustrates students as active participants in their learning. Students are able to direct and reflect on their own learning through this approach. Bandura found that students' beliefs in the efficacy for self-regulated learning affected their personal self-efficacy for academic achievement, which in turn influenced their academic goals they set for themselves and their final academic achievement. Personal learning spaces can be both physical and intellectual. When looking at the intellectual side of these learning spaces, we focus on self-direction, self-efficacy, and reflection. Directed learning is a form of study in which learners have primary responsibility for their own learning. Self-efficacy is the belief in one's capabilities to organize and execute the courses of actions required to manage prospective situations. Take a moment to pause and look at the strengths for teachers and students in using personal learning spaces. With benefits come many challenges which teachers and students have to face when using personal learning spaces. Take a moment to look at these challenges. I find that the best strategy for personal and self-directed learning is the ongoing self-motivate, self-manage, self-modify, and self-monitor strategy, seen here. Other strategies and approaches are seen below. The classroom is a physical space where students spend most of their time learning. The way a classroom is designed will have a great impact on the way that students learn. Studies show that horizontal lines promote calmness and stability, while vertical lines encourage strength in learners. It is vital for teachers to survey students to see what type of classroom design they prefer. Teachers need to ask themselves, does my classroom design represent the curriculum? And what are my students' thoughts on the classroom design before choosing a design? I strongly believe that this school will benefit from open plan learning classrooms. Take a moment to pause and see the strengths for teachers and students in having open plan learning classrooms. Here are some challenges for teachers and students when using open learning classroom environments. Open learning spaces are very flexible and are multidisciplinary and can be changed in many ways to suit specific learning experiences. Instructions and guidelines should be explicitly set out around the classroom. Resources and equipment need to be kept safe and organized. Teachers will need to implement noise management strategies. Seating arrangements need to promote group work and discussions. It is vital that teachers survey students on their preferences and ideas before designing their new classroom. We will now shift our focus to the e-space. Our world is driven by technology, and this technology has had an enormous impact on 21st century learners. The e-space refers to learning that occurs through the online and digital world. It occurs when students utilize electronic devices to access educational curricula inside and outside of the classroom. Pause the screen so you can look at the benefits in using the eSpace for teachers and students. Here are some challenges which may arise for teachers and students when using the eSpace. There are many approaches, strategies, and resources which students and teachers can use in the eSpace. Teachers need to ensure that all learning programs are up to date and safe to use for students. Students need access to laptops, iPads, and important software programs. Teachers need to constantly monitor the use of technology. Students and teachers can collaborate through online personal learning networks such as Moodle, Scoodle, Twitter, etc. At the bottom of the page are some resources and applications which are great for e-learning. Beyond the school refers to learning that takes place outside the classroom environment. Excursions occur when students are given the opportunity to explore educational settings in the outside community. Incursions occur when outside professionals visit the school to run educational activities with students. 21st century learning environments are envisioned as places where the learner is engaged in self-directed and cooperative learning activities, and the physical environment is planned so that it can be routinely reorganized to mediate learning. Take a moment to pause and reflect on the benefits which may arise for teachers and students participating in incursions and excursions. Listed here are some challenges which teachers and students may face when going on excursions and incursions. Teachers need to carefully teach and plan lessons which lead up to the excursion to ensure students are well prepared for the unique experience. Excursions must be linked to the curriculum. Teachers and colleagues must collaborate and plan early for incursions and excursions, particularly on larger units of work. Teachers need to ensure that follow-up activities occur after an excursion to reflect on what was learned and what else is to be found out. Reflections can be in the form of discussions, journal entries, recounts, artworks, PLNs, etc. We will now look at group, Collaborative and cooperative learning spaces. Collaborative learning is an open-ended form of group work where learners are engaged in interactions. It is informal and not structured. In contrast, in cooperative learning, each student in the group is given a specific role, and each student must equally participate and is accountable for the work in the group. Studies show that group work promotes higher student achievement, self-esteem, and motivation. Researchers have affirmed that through cooperative learning groups, individual learning is enhanced, not diminished. Here are some benefits which group work may bring for teachers and students. Please take your time to pause and have a look at these. There are also some challenges for teachers and students when it comes to group work. Please also pause and have a look at these. Some cooperative learning strategies are Jigsaw, Four Corners, Think, Pair, Share, and student teams achievement divisions. Collaborative learning strategies include set group goals, create pre-tests and post-tests, use a range of different learning strategies, promote interactions, and relate work to the real world. The final space which we'll be looking at is called the liminal space. This is best described as the space between what we know and what we're yet to know. All the transformation takes place here. It is seen as a transitional stage where a learner moves from one point of learning to another. When a learner is in this space, they will experience a range of barriers and challenges which they will need to overcome in order to achieve some success. Presented on this slide are a range of benefits for teachers and students associated with the liminal space. Please take your time to go through these points. When working in the liminal space, teachers and students are presented with a range of challenges. These can be seen on the screen. Please take some time to look at these points carefully. Teachers need to provide students with experiences that encourage them to enter and work through the liminal space to experience new ideas and ways of thinking. This space can be found in all KLAs. Teachers need to give their students time to grow and develop while they are in the liminal space. Educators need to find ways to get to know their students very well, to make learning a positive and interesting experience for them. Teachers need to work closely with students when required to help guide them and succeed through the liminal space. Educators must also ensure that there are support programs available for students in need. Thank you all so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have gained an insight into why it is imperative to implement these 6 learning spaces in our school.